The Airbus A380 has been a massive success for Airbus and their customers alike. And it's not surprising that Emirates wants to add more of them to their fleet. However, there is a big but because the airline only wants to buy one and only if Airbus can make this plane even better. So what does this new version of the A380 have to have? Let's find out. Welcome to my channel. It's my job to keep you in the loop on all things aviation. And boy, do we have news coming out of Hamburg, Germany, where Emirates President Tim Clark stated at the ITB Travel Trade show that his airline would consider buying an A380neo, which stands for New Engine Option, if Airbus could develop one with a 70% reduction in noise and emissions. Now, as I said before, the A380 has been a great success for Airbus, selling to 151 units before production was halted due to a lack of demand. However, the A380 is not known for being the most fuel-efficient plane around, which makes it less than ideal to operate in congested airspace like London or New York, thus the need for a quieter and cleaner-burning engine. But there's already a solution for this. You see, the A380neo was studied back in 2016, where Airbus found that a new engine option was needed if they were going to market this aircraft towards airlines flying into these busy airports. And those engines did exist. The problem was that they were not common with any other engines used by Airbus. So the company would have to develop new training programs, new maintenance programs, and new spare parts logistics. Not to mention that no airline was interested in buying the plane at the time, which led the project to be shelved. However, fast forward to now and we find ourselves in a very different market. The Boeing 747 MAX is grounded indefinitely. The 787 has had its own set of problems recently. And with the 777X being delayed until 2025, airlines are looking for alternatives. And guess what happens to be just the right size for long-haul, high-capacity routes? That's right, the A380. In fact, when production was halted back in 2019, Airbus had 114 A380s still on backlog. And since then, they've managed to sell another 10, bringing that number to 124. One of those sales was, of course, Air France, who decided to convert some of their 787 orders into A380neos. But why is Emirates interested all of a sudden? Well, it's because they want to expand their fleet with wide-body aircraft. But they also don't want to expand their fleet with a wide-body aircraft. Does that make sense? Well, here's what I mean. You see, Emirates has seen declining passenger numbers over the past couple of years, and that's mainly due to the fact that their main hub, Dubai, has not been issuing new visas and has been cracking down on overstayers, resulting in a decrease of tourism and business travel. On top of that, Emirates' main customer base, India, has seen many flights get cancelled due to a lack of available slots. In addition, India is also trying to limit the number of flights to Dubai from their country to curb the rising number of COVID-19 cases. And to make matters worse, India has so many internal destinations where Emirates could fly to, meaning that they could grow their network within the country without having to use their main hub in Dubai. So given this uncertainty, it's no wonder that Emirates doesn't want to commit to any new wide-body aircraft right now. They just don't know what the future will bring. However, if they don't do anything about it, their wide-body fleet will start getting old. And that is not something they want to deal with considering that they have such a young fleet today. Their average age of their wide-body jets is only 9.5 years. But what do we mean by wide-body? Because it seems like Emirates kind of wants to add another wide-body jet to their fleet. Well, that is because they in the process of reconfiguring some of their 777-300ers to a new first-class business class. However, it looks like that won't be enough for the airline to fill their long-haul needs in the future. You see, with 777 production ending in 2025, Emirates will have to turn to another manufacturer. And that manufacturer is Boeing. With Boeing, the 777X is set to come with new engines, new interiors, and improved aerodynamics. And that might be exactly what Emirates is looking for. However, there is a catch. You see, Emirates is not known for being shy when it comes to negotiating. In fact, in 2019, they managed to strike a deal where they would get a discount on every 777X they bought and also get compensation for every day that the plane was delayed. And now it looks like they want to strike a similar deal with Airbus. It all started back in 2022 when Emirates President Tim Clark said that his airline would consider buying the A380neo if Airbus could find a way to reduce noise and emissions by 50%. Then earlier this year, Clark said that that number had gone up to 70%. And now it looks like that's still not enough. Airbus has already looked into this and knows that a 70% reduction in noise and emissions is possible by retrofitting new engines onto the A380. These engines are the same ones that were supposed to be put onto the A380neo back in 2016, but with that project being cancelled, it meant that they would also be put on hold. These engines are made by Safran and are called the High Efficiency Engine or the H-5300. This engine is not only more efficient, but it also produces less noise than the Trent 900s that currently power the A380. The main benefit of the H-5300 is that it uses composite fan blades instead of titanium, and that allows for better airflow and less noise pollution. However, these engines are still in development and won't be ready until 2027, so if Emirates really wants these engines, they'll have to wait a few years. On top of that, the H-5300S will not be cheap, and Emirates will most likely demand a price cut per aircraft if they decide to go ahead with the purchase. After all, the A380 was never really marketed as an eco-friendly plane and is not competitive in the current market. The list of demands won't end there either. If Airbus wants to sell this plane to Emirates, they'll have to sweeten the deal even more. And that is because Emirates has already stated that they don't want any more planes that require special handling. Speaking of pilots, another thing that Airbus will have to take care of is the flight crew training. Since the A380neo will have new systems and new equipment, the company will have to develop new training programs and simulators. Something that Emirates is demanding is that these simulators can be used across the entire A380 fleet, whether it's the original version or the new version. Another thing that the company will have to look into is maintenance. You see, the A380 has had its fair share of maintenance issues, and Emirates wants these to be solved once and for all. Thus, Airbus will have to come up with a maintenance plan that includes spare parts, repair manuals, and training for technicians. To be honest, the A380neo is just an upgrade to the current A380. Thus, it should be pretty easy for Airbus to come up with these solutions. However, it will be expensive and it will take time. But how much time? Well, that's also something that Emirates wants to specify. The airline president has already said that he wants a decision on this matter by the end of 2024, and that gives Airbus less than 2 years to come up with all these solutions. And it gets even worse when we consider that Airbus will also have to compete with Boeing. Remember that Emirates did try to renegotiate their 777X contracts to include these noise reduction measures, but Boeing refused. That could push Emirates even more towards Airbus, especially if they could offer the same performance as the 777X, but with lower operating costs. Will Airbus accept the challenge? Well, it might be the best thing for them anyway. You see, Airbus is not making any money from selling airliners right now due to the amount of delays and cancellations they've had. And with the A321neo being their only real source of income, the company needs a hit and they need it fast. In fact, it was reported that the company was trying to sell the A380neo to Emirates back in 2021, and now it seems like they were giving it another go. What is even more interesting is that Airbus CEO Christian Esdorf said that he thought the A380 still had potential and that there were still airlines out there who could use the aircraft. Maybe he was talking about Air France, who ordered 19 of these aircraft, or maybe he was talking about Qatar Airways, who has 50 unbuilt A380s left on their backlog. But it seems like he was talking about Emirates because if they were to buy even just the 10 remaining A380s, it would save the program once and for all. And with the A380neo, it looks like Airbus might just be able to do that. But that's gonna do it for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.